Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
What up, everybody? It's a beautiful day. Hey, Nina, how you doing?
Hey.
So this is Ian. have a YouTube channel as well. Anita,
I can barely hear you though. Hi.
is it too quiet or is it
Okay, there you go. Now it's better.
okay? All right, legit. So how are you doing today?
Good. How are you? I've been like just doing like a lot of run around. So I'm here though. Yay.
It's actually a weirdly important day. I don't know
it?
if anyone knows this. I was trying to figure out what's the most important thing happening today. I think I figured it out.
What?
Mickey Mouse is free. Have you heard this?
Is he?
It's coming. It's coming. Okay, it's gonna be 2024. But they finally did the court case, and they've decided that in 2024, the original Mickey Mouse will enter public domain. He'll be free. He'll be liberated. They will emancipate the mouse. The Fantasia version, where he has pupils, is a more modern Mickey Mouse, right? It's not the Steamboat Willie Mickey. So that'll take another 20 years probably. I can see that taking a while. But
so this is the Steamboat Mickey one?
Right. So the original Mickey, like Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, like the original. I remember.
That's cool because now he can get a job. He can do what he wants. He could start his own thing. That's crazy. Like he's finally free. So imagine we'll be able to hang out with Mickey. Mickey will be able to be part of our lives, you know.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It's a weird thing, right? Like, so what do you think about this whole copyright situation? You know, like we have all these symbols that we can't use.
I think it's stupid, personally. I think you should be able to use whatever you want. Have you ever seen the Itchy and Scratchy version of this? I always laugh at that. Like the one from The Simpsons.
Probably. Let me see if pull it. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
there they are.
Sure. They got away with that because of fair use, right? Because it's not Mickey, but
because they changed it so much and they called it Itchy.
Right. So I wonder though, because I had a teacher once, I think I was in kindergarten, and I was reading the back of something. It's like trademark and copyright, and it's reserved. And I was like, what does that mean? It's like, well, nobody else can use that but them. I'm like, wait, so if I'm drawing pictures of these characters, I can't do that? That's lame.
I know.
But then she says, oh, well, you know, then they're protecting their characters because what if someone does something, making the characters do bad things that they don't want the characters to do? So that brings me to the what's the new?
People are gonna do that anyways.
Well, yeah, I mean, but they can sue them, you know. But now they can't. Now Winnie the Pooh, the Blood and Honey's coming out. Have you heard about this movie?
No, I have not.
So A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh's in public domain. And,
why would you ruin my childhood?
I mean, that's kind of some people's argument. I don't know. I it's funny because I stand on the idea of freedom.
Definitely. I mean, I would never watch it, but I think that it's like if you're into it, like, you know, whatever floats your boat, like go for it. But I would never watch it because I don't want to ruin my own childhood. But if people want to ruin their own childhood, that's up to them, you know.
Well, let's ruin each other's childhoods together. The Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey poster art will ruin your childhood. Literally,
oh my God, it already did. I was like,
are you ready to take a hammer to your childhood? Good, because today Dread Central got our hands on the official poster art for Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, the highly anticipated horror reimagining of the classic character. I can only imagine that the 100 Acre Woods are going to be completely terrifying. So. I mean, but yeah, so
that kind of reminds me of that Alice in Wonderland game. Did you ever play the horror?
Oh, yeah. What was that called? Like Tim McGraw?
Tim something McGrath. Alice in Wonderland.
That wrong?
Dude, that whole thing was a mushroom trip.
I don't remember. It was so long ago.
There's the game.
That was the one? Oh, I thought it was the older one. There was a one that was from like...
No. Go back to the pictures because the picture was that's the one right there, like bottom row.
Man, there was one from 2000 where she had dark hair and it was really scary. Is that what we're talking about? I just saw
the picture of it.
Oh, we'll go back. Maybe missing it. You see it
right there, like Alice, like bottom right next to it.
Oh, that's pretty good. There it is. Yeah, these games were nuts, man. I don't know.
Yeah. It was so horrific, but it was so good. Like I liked it. I was like, this is good. Like I could do this. This is fine.
Are you playing many games now?
Murdered. Right now I'm playing GTA 5 because I never finished it. So I was like, you know what? Like maybe I should finish this game. So I finally started playing it.
I just finally completed it. I hadn't completed it before in a year, and I was so glad I did. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, I'm like really enjoying it right now. back in the day, I played GTA 5, and then I got to the point where Trevor was like torturing this dude, and I was like, I can't play this, so I stopped playing it. And then after that, like I just didn't get to it again until now. And then I played like Red Dead Redemption like a year ago, about a year ago. That game was so good. I love that game.
Dude, best game, probably best game ever. What's the deal with Rockstar Games though, right? Because they've got you start out in Blackwater, and so there's that whole allegory to like Blackwater, the group. What's the name in GTA? Have you gotten through the game enough where you're dealing with some paramilitary group? I forget the name of the special forces group, but it's basically Blackwater.
Forget what their name is.
And there's a lot of disclosure in the Red Dead Redemption games.
Yeah, I love they've always kind of done that in Grand Theft Auto though. They always had that like alien timeline, and they had like the whole like I think they had Bigfoot, and was it San Andreas, or it was one of them? I don't remember. But they've had like a whole bunch of like paranormal things that they always do. I love that one mission in Red Dead Redemption 2 where like they do the time traveler thing, or like the dimension hopper thing. I was like, whoa, that's fucking cool.
I like the UFO. You're just hanging out in Red Dead Redemption. All of a sudden, that UFO flies over your head. That's pretty great.
Wait, I didn't get to that part. What?
Oh,
That
no,
never
really?
happened to me.
Yeah. So if you go to the burnt out cabin in, I forget something, the Northeast somewhere. But there's a burnt out cabin that used to be like the Driscoll farm or something like that. And if you're there at night about 2 a.m., a UFO flies over your head.
Oh my God. Now I want to go back and look at it.
Yeah,
I also like the giant in Red Dead Redemption 2. That was cool because it was like a giant skeleton of a person, like a giant person.
Yeah, where was that again? I forget.
That was in one of the mountains. Like I got lost somewhere, and then I like, I was just like lost, and I was like, just, whatever. Like, you get lost in those games and you're just like wandering around. And so like I went like under this like I was like, ooh, what's this path? It's like, it's got a cave. This got to be a secret, like, so I'm just like walking there. And then all of a sudden it's like this giant skeleton, and it like marked it on my map. And I was like, I knew this would be something, but it was cool because it was like
Titans
person. Yeah. Titans.
So you saw some of the Tartaria doc earlier. Did you get into a bit? You kind of get now how weird it is, or what? How far?
Oh my God, it's really good. I started it. I should say I started it, and then I was like, I'm gonna watch this when I get home, and then I didn't get home till now, so I haven't been able to. But I'm like, I'm so in it now, dude. Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be watching this. This is so trippy. I like this kind of stuff. My husband was like really into it like a few years ago, and then he found your channel and he wanted to talk to me about it, and he was like, let me tell you about all this stuff. And I was like, you're crazy, like go away, like because I don't care.
It's hard, man. It's some crazy stuff. I mean, I totally hear that. I mean, but playing Red Dead Redemption, isn't it kind of weird like how much of the stuff in Red Dead Redemption it would seem weird to a person who didn't know anything about the Old West. But if you know the Tartaria narrative, like New Orleans, Saint Denis with all the electricity and the carts and everything, Titans in the mountains, it's like it's all kind of put into our subculture or pop culture.
That stuff really tripped me out. That's why I really like all those games, like the Rockstar games. I always feel like there's people like you and I, making these games. Like they're definitely like some out there people, and I think that's why it's really good. It's weird though because I feel like the conspiracy theory crowd. Like I've always been part of the conspiracy theory crowd. I like conspiracy theories. I enjoy them. Because they kind of like just get your mind going, and they, it's just the way it is. But my journey started like years ago when I had like a couple weird experiences, and I was just like, oh, I need to start asking questions. And then I did. And it led me, through one rabbit hole to another. And like, I started listening to Art Bell, and Art Bell, like through Art Bell, I found like Alex Jones, and like, it was like a whole thing. But then when you start going into conspiracy theories, I've always felt like conspiracy theories have two different kinds of like there's two different kinds of groups. There's like the really diehard conspiracy theory people, And then there's just the moderates, you know, like the people
Right,
who are
yeah.
just kind of asking questions. And I always feel like the really diehard crazy conspiracy theory people, I feel like sometimes they're doing themselves a disservice because they're so hardcore about it that they're causing people to kind of like throw out the baby with the bathwater. And sometimes, like, you know, I've always thought, like, even though I respect Alex Jones greatly, for the longest time I thought he was a tar baby. Like, I thought he was like, there's certain things that he would do or say that would drive people away, and they'd be like, wait, you're like listening to Alex Jones, like that guy's crazy, you know, like
Right.
he's like doing this like screaming act and doing like the stuff, and I'm like, there's like some truths to what he says, and there's especially like his weird, like really out there ideas. Like, I always felt like that he had some things, like there's some truths that they trickle through if they're allowed to trickle through those truths. But then, you know, through that you get the tar too, right?
The
Like, because
method of communication is just so rotten, and it's a really sad thing with so many people that they get really angry about their
Mhm,
beliefs, and they feel like they have to force the other person to agree with them for them to be true, instead of just
mhm,
trying to let the truth kind of arise from discourse, because there's a chance that you're missing part of even whatever might be even seeing the truth, but seeing it wrong,
mhm.
right? And then someone else.
Exactly.
So it's weird also because when you force people, it never works. So yeah, we've got this.
You have to want it yourself. Like, that's one of the things with conspiracy theories or those ideas. Like, you have to be asking yourself, like, only like that's the only way it'll work. Because if you're trying to push it down anyone's throat, like they're just gonna get turned off and they're gonna think you're the crazy one.
Right.
I always thought the other thing about it too is like, I always said that, like, again, I've always liked conspiracy theories. I always liked that kind of stuff. But like, for example, there's like lines that I draw though. Like, so I was like, okay, I'm drawing a line here. Like, I don't care. I'm like, I understand that you're passionate about it. Not you, just generally speaking. I understand that whoever it is passionate about this, but like, I'm drawing the line. And my line personally is flat earth. Like, no, I'm sorry, but no. Like, we live on a globe. Look at the moon. Like, it's circular. It's a fucking no. No. Okay. Like, so for me, like, that line is flat earth. And I think that, and it really tripped me out when the first time I heard even the theory that, like, did you know that it's like, you know, there's the earth could be flat? And I'm like, did we just go to like the fucking 1400s? Like, what the hell just happened? Like, are we at this at a point in our life where we trust nothing anymore because we've been lied to so much that we're like, let's just take a
Yeah, I mean
giant leap backwards.
that's
So
an
that
interesting it's an interesting thing because so many people said, "Hey, we don't trust things that NASA said to us. We don't trust things that the church has said to us. We don't trust the Jesuits." So
Mhm.
where does that leave us in terms of Galileo, or where does that leave us in terms of satellites or any of these, things that we've so where are we supposed to piece together? I mean, it's interesting, right? Because you look, I mean, part of the thing with the flat earthers is you look at the sun and the moon and they tend to be about the same size in the sky, but Newton's telling you one's billions of miles away and much, much bigger. And therefore, they just happen to look perfectly, symmetrical in your eyes. But
Mhm.
we're set up with this thing where you have to believe it, or else, like you said, your whole reality falls apart. I mean, if
Mhm.
that's what you're basing, you're saying it doesn't matter if it's true, because as long as it's my reality and everyone's sharing it, we have to continue believing it, because otherwise it'll just destroy our civilization. And it
Yeah.
isn't, I don't know. I mean, it's weird though,
It's
right?
it's but it's funny to me because I feel like that's what the conspiracy theory world is about, kind of like the idea that the powers that be have lied to you so much and you're being so disillusioned that you rather believe that you live on a flat earth at this point. Because it's just like, you know, if they've lied to me about all of this, what else are they lying about? That could also mean that we don't even live on a round earth. Like, we live on a fucking flat earth. Like, you know, like, and it's just like those kind of things. I feel like that's the stuff that like I feel like certain people have done a disservice to that movement.
You know who does it the best? David Weiss is all right, but like probably Conspiracy Music Guru. I don't know if you've heard this guy.
I've heard of Conspiracy Music Guru, but I didn't listen to a lot of the stuff.
I wanna, I'll see if I can pull up his page actually. So he does music that's like about conspiracy theorists, and he's actually a British guy, but he puts on a really great American, like conspiracy music guru. He puts on a really great kind of like Southern cowboy sounding accent.
Okay.
And he does just like the best kinds of stuff. Like, don't let them take your mind. And like, I told you so. Do you still believe we went to the moon? And all these great things.
Oh
and
my God, that's funny.
They're really funny, and they're not like angry or anything like that. And they're hilarious. It's all a puppet show, and he's got, he's like, this is the same techniques.
I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I feel like there are people like that are trying to, make you question. I mean, because I'm sure like the CIA, NASA, the Soviet Union, they've done a lot of things to fake news. Why not fake some space news? That's a totally believable thing that could have happened even along the way, because
hey, that was my first that was my first conspiracy theory, was the moon landing. Like,
right. So I was gonna say, because you said you've had some experiences that led you down the path. What were the first experiences that got you?
I'm not going to talk about the experience.
Fair enough. Okay.
But like but just generally speaking, like, one of the earliest ones was the idea that the moon landing was faked. And I'm a firm believer that it was. I don't think that we went to the moon the way that they said we went to the moon. I do believe in the secret space program. And I think that, they have gone to the moon, but the way that it was shown on TV in like 1969 or whatever it was, I don't think that quite went down. Right? I think they're like, the whole thing about it being filmed in a desert somewhere, I think is more accurate than what actually happened. But
so why do you think they would have faked the moon landing? Even beyond any of this other stuff, what's the most practical Occam's razor for it?
I think probably the biggest reason was because of the space race. For one thing, they wanted to say that they won over Russia. So, I mean, by any means necessary, like we gotta beat those Ruskies. So I think that's probably what it was. It was more than anything else. It was just they wanted to give the illusion that they're a stronger nation than Russia at the time. And they wanted to do that. And I think
that's totally, to be honest, that's my understanding and belief, is that they were super scared if anything went wrong, how it would make us look. And they had to make it look real. Just
they're not going to kill like astronauts live on air. Are you kidding? Like, no way. At least not the first time. It's happened before.
Right. I mean, they did, poor Laika, but okay. Besides that poor dog and the monkey, what about Kubrick? Do you have any thoughts on, because they always say he filmed it.
I absolutely think he I think he was involved. I think he was involved. I like Kubrick. I think his death was very sus. I think he knew a lot of like interesting information that he let out. Especially with Eyes Wide Shut. Nobody was talking about anything like that before Eyes Wide Shut came out. Yeah. And I think that he had a lot of interesting experiences, ideas, knew certain people. I mean, even look at 2001 Space Odyssey. I mean, some of the stuff that he talked about, not that Space Odyssey was based on Arthur C. Clarke book, which I've read. I still think that his interpretation was really interesting because it's not the same. And I think that he was a very interesting man. I think he knew a lot of things. I want to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of Admiral Byrd, Hollow Earth, kind of civilizations coming in and out, do you think that there's something there? What do you think about all that?
I love those ideas too, like the Hollow Earth idea. That's why I like I really like the new Godzilla versus Kong stuff, because they talk about the Hollow Earth, and I'm like, I fucking love this. I don't know. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of like the 3,000 Leagues Under the Sea and like Jules Verne in general. Like, I always like loved the idea of like, like under the sea civilizations, or like Atlantis, or like the what's it called? Like a Hollow Earth, like going Journey to the Center of the Earth. That's the
Right.
book.
Yeah, that's the
And
best.
like I love that story, like the Center of the Earth story, which like and it was so cool, like when they made it there and there was like dinosaurs and like all that kind of stuff where it's still there. I always thought that those things were really interesting. And um I mean, it's weird because like you think that it could be someone's imagination. Like Jules Verne's imagination was so great. You could pass it off as imagination, but I also think that it could be a little bit more to it. Like it could be just a little bit more to some things.
Do you see the volcano snail?
No.
We did a
Mm,
thing. Let me see if I
check
can
that.
pull it up really quickly. Volcano snail. I was on Chrissy's show and we brought up the volcano snail because
Oh yeah, I've been meaning to watch that. I knew you were going live with her. That's another thing I have to watch.
that was just earlier today. So you got time in your life.
No,
But
I got so much stuff to watch.
but this thing is crazy, right? Because this is a volcanic
What is that?
snail. It's a snail that lives in volcanoes. And it lives at like
Ooh.
1,000 degrees or whatever, and it eats metal, and the metal mineral content, the metals become its shell. And yeah, basically there are things
That's
that
cool.
that live underground that are pretty intense. Like this could be, it kind of looks like Alien or Predator or something. It
Well, I
fits
mean,
into that.
like there's all sorts of creatures like this kind of like remind me very of aliens. I mean, look at octopuses. Like octopuses are intelligent and like the way that they like function are completely alien. Like if you really think about it, they're just completely like alien creatures.
There's nothing more terrifying than the cephalopod. This whole genus. Oh man, cephalopod. Right there we go.
But
I
that
mean,
black creature, no, there's something even more terrifying than this.
what? Tell me. I'm so
There's
confused.
one there's this, I forget what it's called, but it's literally like the black goo thing from Venom, like from like
Mhm.
Spider-Man Venom.
Or
It's
the
literally
Ferngully
that
bad guy.
fucking thing. It's literally Venom. Like it like
Ugh.
crawls around and it's like it's black and it's like oh, it's so weird looking. And I'm like, it looks exactly like Venom. And I'm like, oh
God.
my God, like that is so alien. I don't know what it's
These
called though.
these things though, like, because the brain is like a donut and it comes around this beak. Like, check this
Oh
out.
yeah, the beak thing. It's like
Yeah,
the Kraken.
has a beak, so it's basically a sea parrot with all these wings with tentacles that spin
Yes.
fangs at you and turns you into a Slurpee, and it has to suck you through the beak around its brain, so it has to liquefy you.
Ah,
And it's got the
that's
8
so
arms, but it also
great.
has these 2 longer arms that you think you're kind of like 20 feet away, right? No, then the longer arms come out and pull you in. I don't know. I don't like
That's
it.
so creepy. I hate these things. Oh my
They have
God.
like nightmare stories in California on the North Coast because like the Humboldt squid grows to be over 6 feet long. So they tell you like, don't be out alone on a little boat at night, because
Oh
they
my
pull
God.
fishermen off and stuff. It's like horrifying,
That is horrifying.
man. So, okay, in terms of aliens, then, what do you think about 2001's monoliths or aliens in general? Do you believe there's something else out there?
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? I'm definitely I'm a definite believer. Um, I don't know. I believe in it. Like I kind of believe in any and all things. Like I kind of believe that I think there's been a guided hand in our civilization. I think that I like to lean more towards the idea that they're dimensional travelers than spacefaring. But I think they also are spacefaring because there's evidence of it, like with what happened with Area 51 and like all this stuff. So I think that the main like I don't know how out there I want to get here, but I don't know.
This
I
is a
believe
great place for that. If you're gonna get out there, Tartaria
I
Thursday.
personally think that it's a combination of things, and I think they're let's just say they're out there.
It'd be
They're out
crazy to think if you believe in the Drake equation, right? And things are expanding all the time. If you believe in that,
there.
then
Mhm.
as the questions being thought about, there are more spaces for there to be life. So it seems like the likelihood is always increasing in probability. But what about the okay? So also before I get into
Well, wait. Let's get to you too, though, because I want to know. Okay, first of all, do you believe in flat Earth? Because you believe in a lot of weird shit.
I mean, I believe in everything at once. I believe in electric universe.
I do
Holographic
too. I
universe,
like the
right?
electric universe theory. I think that shit is awesome.
So if the universe is a holographic universe, let me pull this up. If the universe is a hologram, then basically everything is flat, right? I mean, if you think about it,
Oh my God.
it's all
Okay,
flat
not
at
that
once.
crazy. No.
Well, here it is. If the whole universe is all at once, and then the way it is that energy is being refracted to produce these femto arrangements of matter, subatomic particles, then we're experiencing depth perception, and the fact that we're existing in multiple spaces at once over time, we're explaining that as like dimensionality. We have multiple dimensionality, but it would mean it's not that the Earth's flat, it's that everything is flat. Everything is part of one flat thing that is being experienced as depth, and you're experiencing depth, and that's real. So
But
people that experience
that kind of, I mean, Einstein kind of talked about that too, like with terms of the, like if you're talking about like dimensional awareness, like, you know, third dimension, fourth dimension, like that kind of thing, then yes, like I agree with that.
I mean, so I think that there's a way that it can be both, but you said Roswell, so I'll throw you back then. What do you think happened to Roswell? What do you believe that's about?
I think that there was an alien fucking crash landing, and they were like,
legit.
Oh, shit.
Is there only been one alien group that's been here? Which do you have any thoughts about like who they are or what they wanted?
I like there's several. I think that they there's different. Like I said, that like for example, that's different than, let's say, the Mothman, because I think that the Mothman is also an as a creature that exists, but I think that's more like a dimensional creature versus like spacefaring. So, like, yes, there's aliens. They're both aliens, but they're just different. And I don't think they work together either.
Did you ever watch Battlestar Galactica?
Yes, I have.
That totally. I mean, everyone keeps talking about aliens in the last few days because UFOs and UAPs are like trending and stuff. But it seems like everything comes back to Battlestar Galactica because you have this idea that there's a centric group of these worlds that are civilized, and they're all interacting on a planet that is shared somehow by 12 different signs of the zodiac, which are represented by one of the different groups. And if there really are things that are interacting with us, it would kind of make sense that there are on Earth alternative different kinds of things we're looking at, not necessarily the same. Even also the Cylon, right? Because in Battlestar Galactica, you have let me just pull up Cylon. You have these like toasters, they call them, which are these robot people, but basically they're transmitting their consciousness through light and data, so infrared, and they're able to get into different bodies. So they're kind of doing both. You've got that thing where they could genetically create a being that they can store data in, and it could exist on Earth. So what's the difference between like robot AI intelligence and organic intelligence, in your opinion?
That's a hard question.
To be fair, it's hard for anybody.
I mean, well, I don't think we've quite come across actual AI in our time. So I don't think there's no really accurate example. Everything's kind of been like we base it on our theories of what we think it's going to be like. Like, if you're talking about Cylons or Skynet or like those kind of things, iRobot. But like, I don't know. I mean, it's weird because I think that's when it comes to AI, which I'm completely against, by the way. Like, I'm one of those people. I don't like robots. I don't like AI. I think it's all leading to a very terrible place and inevitability. I'm not for AI. I have a friend that like we talk about this all the time. It's kind of like a running joke now. Her name is Jane Theory. She's got a great channel. But we disagree because she likes the robot takeover and I don't. So she's like, she's like, I'm ready for it. And I'm like, no, you're not, Jane. Like, you don't want that to happen.
Well, elaborate here. So what is she looking forward to? And what are you
just like the AI takeover. She's just like over she's like over humans. And she thinks that the AI, like, they should take over. I don't, I like humanity. I think that, I like, no. But like, I just think that I think that there's parallels in everything though. Like, so for example, like even though I'm not necessarily a religious person, I've read a lot of religious texts and I've studied spirituality. I'm a spiritual person. So I was born in Iran. So like off the bat, I'm Muslim because, like when you're born in that fucking region, for some reason, you're considered that religion from birth. So obviously, I've read the Quran, and I have had to, and I've read a lot of different spiritual texts and things like that. So the idea that we're designed in God's image is something that kind of like you know reverberates around like all kind of spiritual text and the idea that comes with that, especially Christianity. And I think that that's kind of really similar to what's going on with AI. And I think that that's basically what's happening with us is we're playing God and we're trying to create something in our own image. And I think it's going to let us down.
That's pretty
I
fair.
think it's going to be like that kid that like, you have the little psychopath kid that turns out to be like Damien. And then you're like, oh, fuck. Like, maybe I shouldn't have had this kid because it's Damien.
Yeah.
And that's going to be AI. It's going to take over.
My God. So wait, you're from Canada, right? Or you live in
Yes.
Canada? Or so
Well, I moved to Canada when I was 10 with my mom. And then now
you were in Iran until you were 10, or how did
Yes.
this all?
Yeah.
Tell me. Maybe we should go back a little further. Tell me a little about, because I could go into Degrassi and Little Mosque on the Prairie, but if you lived in Iran, we better get there too.
Okay, well, yeah, I was born in Iran. I moved to Canada when I was 10 because my mom didn't want to raise a daughter in Iran, which is understandable. And so I moved to Canada when I was 10 with her, and we lived there for quite a long time until I was well into my 30s, I guess. I met my husband. We were living together, and we decided to move to Mexico. So now I'm in Mexico. Like I live in
Epic.
Cancun. And that's why, like, whenever, like, when I was watching your videos and I was like, you're talking about like the pyramids everywhere. I was like, yeah, I live right next to them. Like, and it's really cool because like there is places here where you can just like literally walk around and like it's a bus stop, but it's like a piece of an old pyramid.
Right.
People don't even know, like they don't really understand or realize what they're sitting on. And then you just kind of like take a closer look and you're like, is that a fucking piece of an old, like, thousands of year old somebody's house or something? And it is usually. So those things are really wild about around here. It's a little different in Canada. It was a little different in Canada because Canada, like I found like an Indian arrowhead when I was like really little, and like that was cool, like, so there's certain things in Canada too that are really interesting. But in Mexico, it's like a totally different ball game. Like there's just so much going on historically around here. I think Canada, it's just like a frozen wasteland. Everything's probably like just completely.
Actually, Canada and South America in weird ways. So in terms of the Tartaria thing, they're both really weirdly connected. Like I don't know if you've checked out in Mexico, there's this aqueduct system, the Chapultepec aqueduct, and there's a number of other aqueducts as well that have existed, and they're really similar to some of the Sassanid and Iranian style. And so Tartaria also has a lot to do with Iran and Turan and the Turanian Eurasian Empire that would have spread across. And they even had, if you look at Russia, the Russian architecture, Russian churches that look like Agrabah from the Disney.
That one is in Chiapas. I haven't been to Chiapas yet, but I really want to go.
You can see the Arab influence on Russia, right? There's a lot, and they carried it across Eurasia into California. If you look at like a map from like a polar projection, let me pull out really far. Hold on. If you look at the map from a polar, it won't let me do it, will it? That's terrible. Well, it's not going to let me do it, but I can do polar projection map. You can see like Russia to California and through Alaska is really close. So they actually originally called Alaska Nova Angelisk, and it was like New Angeles. And they had all these places along the coast that had all these settlements that were bringing a lot of this culture. So a lot of this stuff was already there. And then they used Manifest Destiny to get rid of it. They said, oh, well, we got there. They didn't really have anything. Like the pyramids are already shut down. They don't know what they're doing. But then they said things like, these were built by Europeans that were brought in the 17th century, 18th century to emulate things that were far older, which they weren't. And we have evidence that they were built further back and things like that. So there's been a number of things like that. And then in Canada, there was a LiDAR star for Canada. Let me see if I can find this one. They started finding that in Canada, similar to like the rainforest, there's a bunch of kind of lost places that have these shapes to them on mountains that are like
Yeah,
shaped
they're
like
always
snowflakes.
they're all sinking. Yeah.
Right.
Or like covered. Yeah.
And so it's true, like it's a desolate wasteland, maybe you could say, or the oil and tree farms are hiding these things. But there's clearly, I mean, this is crazy. And you start finding more and more things like that, which they try to connect to being, oh, this was a fortification, St. Anne's fortification or something like that. Or Fort Edward, this one is. But more and more, they're finding them in the middle of, nowhere in Canada. So there seems to be pushing
Fort
this.
Edward, though, I think I'm pretty sure that's like really far up north. So that's one of the, that's what I'm talking about. Like a lot of it is like frozen wasteland. So it's like a lot of it has been like, I think through the ice age and everything like that, they've gone through that and they've stayed, obviously they've stayed there, And it's trippy.
We show this map a lot on here recently, but this is the Western Sea interior map, which is the way things used to look when the water poured out and started the last ice age or whatever, or started to thaw from it. And it's crazy. Also, this part was open in some of the maps, and you can see how you could get all around Nova Scotia into Canada, into Ottawa and Saskatchewan, into the British Columbian areas. But it all would have been one landlocked part. But those are the old. If you look at the old California, what's a California island map, which I also been showing a lot recently. So you got this map of California in the old days in the 1700s, where they're using a total border line, showing it's an island.
Oh, that's cool. Old maps trip me out, man.
It's kind of like it makes you wonder, could they have made this mistake? Could this have been, how could they have messed this up? They've got these great charts of all these cities in Mexico and places in California. I mean, could this is where the desert's supposed to be now? Like, could they have made this mistake? Or
I don't know about mistakes.
Right? Do you remember much also? So when you were a kid in Iran, do you remember much before you left?
Yeah, I remember a lot of stuff, but I did go back and like right before 9/11. So it was like 2000. I know. It's 2001. So it was like right before it. Like I came back and literally like a month and a half later, 9/11 happened. And then when I went though, my dad took me to like all the kind of like my ancestral home. And because my ancestors are from like the region of Iran that's like in Shiraz. So I went to Persepolis and like I saw the really cool Iranian history buildings and things like that, and that was really interesting. I've been to Isfahan. I've been to all the different places in Iran that are very historical. The cool one of the really cool ones that you would trip out is the Never Ending Cave. That's in Hamadan, and that one is called like the cave of Adi Sad, and it's like because it's like some like little sheep herder guy. He like his sheep got lost and he found the cave, so they named it after that. So I went to that cave, and that cave is trippy as fuck, because like if you're like thinking about like we were talking about Jules Verne and the journey through the center of the earth. It's just like that. Like, so you go to this cave and there's parts of it where it's like it's literally like the void, and like you look at it and it's like the void stares back at you. Those things are really, really trippy. So that cave is never ending. They still haven't been able to find the ending of it, as far as I know. So I think that like that's a really cool place in Iran. So like I've been to a lot of historical places there. That's really trippy. I love history, and I like those kind of, I like archaeology. I talk about archaeology all the time, actually, on my Infinite Hope show. And
Awesome.
some people really trip out about that because they think that it's really weird that I talk about hopeful things, but I associate like history and archeology and like
No, that
because
fits really
usually
well here.
that's death, with that. But my idea in doing that is because I think that history is really interesting because no matter what different kind of history that you look at the end of the day, humanity carries on. Like no matter what it is, like whether it's comets or, flash floods or whatever you want to call it, volcanoes, like anything. And they tell you like the world's going to end because of climate change. And they tell you like all this stuff. They try to scare you about all the stuff about how humanity's coming to an end one way or another. And I feel like history shows us that that's not the case. Like no matter what, you're going to be okay. Civilization's going to be fine. We're going to carry on into the future. And then our kids and like, way down the line, they'll be looking at our stuff and be like, hey, this civilization was here, well, maybe, I don't know. Depends if our history doesn't get erased.
Right. So living in Canada, like, have you seen that show Little Mosque on the Prairie?
Yes.
I started
A
watching
little
this.
bit, not too
Yeah.
much. I've only watched a few episodes.
I saw a few, and then I went and I started diving into it. I think I've seen maybe 6 to 8 of the episodes now, and I'm kind of fascinated by this because it's this idea of kind of a progressive and I don't want to say secular, but a more Canadian Islam, and it's a more liberal Sharia. So I wondered, what do you think about that? Does that make sense to you? Like,
I haven't too
coming from
much. I haven't watched it too much. I actually just like recently got into
Mhm.
Kim's Convenience, which is really weird. So like I missed Canada and I was like, I need a show to watch. So I wanted to watch like, I don't know, something to do with Canada, and I watched that. But no, I don't like I don't know the show too well, so I can't really
More broadly, I guess I'll just say like what the show is doing is it's talking about women who work in the mosque, and the mosque is renting a church in Canada, so they're trying to deal already. They're at odds with everybody else, but they're very tolerant and progressive, and they're showing the new Toronto Amman knows that the Quran says women can be here, that there's no, you don't have to wear a veil, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they try to get to the heart of, maybe a positive side of the Quran, saying it's not really all about veiling and hiding. And, because we've kind of associated, maybe some
it's
people
not
look
about
at
veiling at all. Actually,
right.
veiling is not even in it.
Exactly. And it's an episode about that. So I wonder, does that make sense to you? Do you think what is Islam to you?
That's a complicated question. And I don't want to offend anybody, because I know that religion is a very personal thing. I don't like the fact that it was forced on me when I was a baby, basically, because when you're, like I said, when you're born in that region, you're considered that from birth. So I don't like anything being forced on me. I don't like religion being forced on me. I don't like science being forced on me. I don't like anything being forced on me. I don't like vaccines being forced on me. I don't like anything. So like so I had a bad relationship with Islam, especially in my younger days, because I wanted to reject it. I didn't want to have anything to do with it, and I had a lot of Christian influence in my life when I was in Iran, because I knew a lot of Syrians, and I knew different people, Russians, and different people that visited Iran quite frequently, and they knew they talked about Christ and the idea of Christ, and I resonated with the idea of Christ more than I did with Muhammad and Islam, and that was forbidden. And another part of my own personality is that I tend to like go towards things that are forbidden, or or someone tells me not to touch or something, like don't do this, and I'm like, oh, I just want to do it more now. So like I'm just that kind of person. And so we were kind of like all I was like I was told, like, and my family was very much rejecting Islam at the time, because both my mom and my dad were part of the underground, the revolution. They were used though because my mom especially was part of the communist movement at like when she was young, and so they were tricked by the theologists and the Muslims and the imams and taken advantage of, and then gotten rid of systematically because of course that's what happened in Iran. That's the history. And so therefore I had a huge kind of like hate towards Islam and communism. I know that sounds really weird, but I did. And then so as I grew older though, and I explored more about, Christianity and Islam and the different religions, Judaism and, Buddhism, whatever you want to call it. I started to look into spirituality more and more and more. And I realized that at some point that it's all different pieces of the puzzle. So I didn't and I went through an atheist phase where I was like, I don't believe in nothing, like, everything fucking, there's nothing,
It happens.
But that atheist phase didn't last long. I tell you that much right now. Like it wasn't something that lasted that long for me because I went through so many different things during that time that was like, okay, like there's definitely something out there. Like I don't know what's out there, but there's something out there. And so then I became like more like spiritual, started reading stuff like Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda and like, like different aspects of spirituality and what that means for everybody. And I think that's kind of what's really missing on earth is the idea of spirituality and getting close to what God means for you. And just I think that there's a lot of problems that could be solved if we had a healthier relationship with spirituality and God and a healthier relationship with death, because death is something that, like I said, we all fear. And I think to some extent, because we don't know, and there's no scientific study of any of this, right? Like there's no scientific study of spirituality. There's no scientific study of the soul. There's no scientific study of any of it. Like where do we go after we die? And there used to be. This is all, like in the 1920s, I think Tesla, and, all those people, they were doing some major insane studies on these things, but at some point it all kind of stopped because of reasons that I'm sure you've looked into. But like, it gets complicated. And I think that is why we're in the state that we're at now. We're just kind of totally as a society, not just society, as a human race, I think we're stifled. I think we're spiritually stifled. So I think we're suffering because of it.
It makes me think that there's got to be a difference then between the organization that's controlling, like there are Westboro Baptists. That doesn't make Christianity, the Westboro Baptist Church. But it makes me also think, hey, if Islam was fostered by a bunch of friendly Canadians, wouldn't it be a completely different religion? So
it probably would be, yeah. But the craziest part is about Islam is that, like, now that because I've read about all this different stuff about it and things like that, I've studied it from the outside instead of being in it. Because once you're in it, you're kind of fucked. You're like, okay, like this is like I have to do this. Whereas when you're studying it from the outside is a little different. You get a different perspective. And then I realized that it wasn't as insane as a lot of interpretations of it, because that's the other thing, right? Is the interpretations that always come from these books. It's not so much what's the written word, it's the interpretation of the written word. And the same thing can be said for the Bible or, for any of these other written texts that are old and changed.
I mean, and then you've got people that believe a certain thing. So that makes me also wonder about, we have this idea of iconoclasm. The Dutch had their iconoclasm, the Muslims had their iconoclasm. They want to stop certain symbols from being proliferated.
Yeah.
But that it's not exactly the way things are written. So who brought that into Islam? I mean, it seems like you look at Iran and all of a sudden it goes through an authoritarian stage. But when did that start, really? Because it doesn't seem like Islam itself is it tied to Islam itself, or is it?
I think it is, yes. Because, well, I think it is. I don't know. It's complicated because Islam is it's really interesting. It's an interesting religion, and it was a powerful religion, but it was one that worked through mostly like not just violence. It worked through um like taking over an area and what's the word I'm looking for here? Like taking the culture and include it into their own.
Assimilation, cultural assimilation. Yeah.
Yeah, cultural assimilation. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what like a lot like the old school Islam did is that it was like, a lot of people think it was a lot more violent than it was, and it was violent, don't get me wrong, but what it did was that it taught the cultural assimilation more than anything else. That's why a lot of people like spoke the language or like learned to speak the language or things like that, because they were assimilated into that culture. And one of the things that's interesting about Islam and like even Muhammad's story is the fact that Muhammad freed the slaves. Like it was a political move for him at the time to have black people become Muslims and like to turn Africa into an Islamic nation as well. And it was all political. It was all power grab. I don't know the guy, so I can't say like what was in his heart, if he actually thought black people were good or not. But you know what I'm saying? But it's true that there's some history there that, like, for example, like the first black man was the one that sang the gods hymn or whatever the hell it's called. I forget. Oh my God, I was so blasphemous right now. I was like, whatever the hell it's called, the God's hymn. Like it was like, but anyways, that's a really big deal in Islam. Like the call to prayer. The call to prayer is a really big deal. And it was the black man was the first person who sang it. And it was a big deal at the time because black people were enslaved. So I think it's just really interesting. And it has a really interesting history. I think it's been a lot like more co-opted than let on, I think, for reasons, cultural reasons.
Yeah.
But I think it's the same thing with Russia. Like, I think that there's a lot of hate for Russia because, there has to be hate for Russia.
Now.
Yeah. Like it just has to be that way. Because people need an outside something to hate. Like if because then it'll have to cause them to look within. If they don't have that outside thing, then it'll cause them to have to look within. And most people don't want to do that. Like they don't want to see what the problem is here at home or wherever it is, like right in front of them. So they have to have somebody else that they can put down.
So a big thing with the Tartaria thing is cultural erasure of all of these different cultures. And one place that really fits the bill is Iran, because Persia, you can see how Farsi's been pushed out, by force and violence, and full on erasure of culture. So I kind of wonder about that. Did you also look into Zoroastrianism and, what do you think about maybe the yeah, exactly. Right. What happens? What do you think about the lost culture of Iran and Persia?
Well, it's really old. So I think the passage of time is going to cause things to fade away on some level. I think like I said, civilizations come and go all the time. It's just something that happens on Earth and on every planet, really. Like our planet is billions of years old. When you really think about it, like no matter what, civilizations have come and gone. It's just the way it is. So I think with Iran, it's weird. I think there's some secret history, like in different aspects of every part of Earth, but I don't know if like I couldn't tell you, I couldn't tell you about if it's been hit. Like, for example, though, like I do know that the Islamics wanted to hide certain things about Iran's past, and especially to do with monarchy. Like anything to do with the monarchy is out. Like whether that's, thousands of years ago or very modern history. They don't want to talk about the monarchy. So the religious because it was a monarchy and they now don't, then now they're not, and they don't.
Are they trying to stop the nobility of the Shah family, specifically? That's still a line that's around, and they're trying to stop that.
Yeah, and they just don't like it. Like if you talk about you could end up in jail. You You know, like it's just you cannot talk about the monarchy. It's not about like it's not accepted. So there's certain things about that like that had to be gotten rid of. But the funny part is though, is that the religious people all have access to that hidden knowledge. So like for example, we used to have a friend. He's called a Sayyid, like that's like a title, which is basically like you're like the descendant of an imam or someone like a prophet that comes from that line, like that lineage. And so and he had access to that hidden knowledge. So what that means is like, for example, like during the revolution, they would either do book burnings or they would hide them. So most of the time they would hide because they wanted their own family and lineage and like blah 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 to have access to that hidden knowledge, right? So they would allow access only for a certain amount of people. And I think that goes back a long way. Like I think that's kind of like that's what history that's modern history. But I think that the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think the same practices have been kind of like done with every civilization, and including Iran and all the surrounding area. So I don't know.
So
it's fascinating.
You became a Christian, you said, when in your youth. Did you believe in the
I
Tower
liked
of Babel?
Christ. That was weird. It was a weird experience though, because I wasn't allowed to like Christ in Iran because I could die. So my mom,
the Brad Pitt version of Christ, like the bad boy Christ. I get it. Okay.
Yeah. No, I liked the idea of Christ, and I liked Christmas. Like I remember I was like, I want to do Christmas. Like I was like really young, and I had a dance teacher, and she was Syrian, so she was Christian. And she was like, we believe in Christ and blah blah blah. And I was like, I want a Christmas tree. I want to believe in Christ. And the other idea was really interesting to me, was the idea that because you could see Christ, right? Like there was always all these depictions of Christ, whereas we didn't have a depiction of Muhammad, like because you're not allowed to have a face. Like Muhammad's not allowed to have a face.
Arguably even a further bad boy move if you think about it. But,
I think it's a terrible move because it kind of, you need an eye. Like if you're gonna do religion like that, you got to do it right, because you have to.
You don't want people to be jealous because he has red hair. A lot of people are like, we don't look like that. But But what about the Tower of Babel? So we talk about
that the world is fascinating.
You've got this idea. The world's been around. There's been civilizations that come and go. Tower of Babel. Do you think? I mean, Iran, Persia. What do you think about Babylon? Do you think the Tower of Babel is a thing?
Yes, I do. I think the Tower of Babel is a metaphor for technology.
Interesting.
So I think that if you think about it right now, we're kind of living in Babylon, because again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So I think history is repeating itself on some level. So my theory is that like it's a symbolic representation of technology in a one world government, in a way, like kind of like the internet, right? Like we're all connected, but we're not really connected, right? So I think that in a way that the Tower of Babel, that's what it represented. The technology of being connected, especially virtually, or if we want to think about it technologically or whatever. And then I think that was our fall. And in a way it still is. I mean, look at TikTok. Okay. Like if you really think about it, like
shout out to the Truth Fairy, who had like the best growing TikTok channel. It's all fake news clips and explicit evidence of all this stuff. And she put up a thing that was the Hunter Biden pedo Pete thing, like 2 days, but 2 days before everyone else did. So they gave her a strike. She appealed it. By 2 days later, everyone's talking about it. They've had to relent. So she wins the appeal. And then the account gets just disappeared, essentially. So like TikTok, again, we know is run by the Chinese military. It's like a surveillance tool. That happens to be a social media thing as a laundry op, just to get you to use the thing. But they're just studying you all the time. TikTok's evil.
Oh my God, it's totally like that. I mean, so is like everything is really like that. But I mean, especially like, I just can't stand TikTok because I feel like TikTok is like ruining everything. Like way more.
That's
than
why I
Twitter
dug the
and
trick
Facebook
she was doing. That's why it was cool. She's putting fake news clips on it because you're like, people are scrolling through nonsense, naked person nonsense, and then boom, there's like evidence that Watergate isn't the most important thing you've ever heard about. There's more.
That's funny. Yeah, I've never
Yeah.
heard of it because I'm not really on TikTok, but
Yeah. What are your favorite social media things? What do you think you can spread the word on the best?
At Twitter.
Yeah.
Definitely. Twitter, I mean, and YouTube.
Yeah.
I think that YouTube is where it's at, unfortunately. And a lot of people like kind of continuously talk to me about like alt platforms and blah blah blah. And I gotta be honest, alt platforms, they're not shit. Like I've been on Odyssey for as long as I've been on YouTube.
Yeah.
Nothing I do on Odyssey gets like maybe 5 watches. Like everything I do gets transported into Odyssey and it doesn't get any views.
Yeah, I think they need to
YouTube
work
is
on
where
their
it's at.
tag system. If they had a better tag system, because the video titles, when you're saving it from a YouTube video, it's saved in a weird way that's harder to search for.
It
and
is. It
need to
is.
work on
It's
that.
all very weird.
Yeah.
But I think YouTube is where it's at. Realistically, especially if you're a content creator that makes money, YouTube is where it's at. This is just the reality of things.
I dig Odyssey because anytime I get censored, the video is still there on Odyssey. I think that's the thing.
Yes, that's the only thing that's. I mean, yes, they do.
Are you ever
they do.
afraid of being suppressed, censored, having one of your things deleted? And
Oh
do you
yeah,
have
I mean, absolutely. I actually got false flagged like last week, or the week before. I forget how, like when it was now, but I got 10
didn't hear this.
strikes, and it was all on Infinite Hope stuff. So it was like actually like the good news, the show that I do that's actually like literally milk toast. Like I talk about good news and I try to balance out everything.
What did you get flagged for?
They said that they said that whatever the thing was that flagged me was to do with links, because I would put links in the description of everything that I talked about. So I'd be like, this is the source for this is the source for this, and blah 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 blah. So they flagged that, saying that that basically the links were some sort of malware or virus or what, I don't know, whatever. And so I appealed it. I won all the appeals, of course, because it's stupid. But when I talked to YouTube, because I talked to them at the same time through Google, like through the back end, and they were like looking into it for me, they confirmed, they like emailed me back and they confirmed that somebody did strike your channel. These were all false flags. And like basically it's gone in your record that you've been false flagged and blah, blah, blah. And like
they'll
obviously
protect you from being false flagged again, hopefully,
or like basically it'll like help you, like help them understand that somebody hates you. So like if it happens again, like they'll be able to like take a better look. And like basically I got like the spiel of please continue to use the YouTube copyright or whatever, or YouTube like terms
platform.
of service or whatever. If you continue to like follow the rules, you'll be just fine, and I was like, gee, thanks. But yeah, it's like, I mean, it is what it is. And there's people out there who are psychopathic or narcissistic or whatever, and they don't want people to be happy. So they want you to like fail or whatever, because that gives them happiness. And that's just the reality of things. I'm all about the yin and the yang, the light and the dark. They exist. That's what our planet is. I fully understand that and accept that. Sometimes it's hard to accept it. I don't want to accept that I live on a planet that, there's people that get enjoyment out of hate and sorrow. But it's just a way of things.
We got a new member. Carries has joined. Carries, it's good to have. We know I've seen you every day, so I'm glad you're here as a member. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining. Well, okay. So then, if Tartaria is real, because I'm going to use that as a precipice for this Babylon Tower thing, because you just talked about technology in Babylon as a metaphor, but let's just take it to like a literal place. Right now, we're using this technology. We're connected. We're doing the thing you're talking about. This is it. Is this leading to our Tower of Babel? Is this our demise?
Absolutely. Okay. Oh yeah, that's what I think. That's why I think it's like a metaphor for that same thing. I think that we're kind of like heading through that cliff dive, which also correlates at the same time with what's going on with AI too, right? Like there's so many different things happening at the same time. So you got like all these studies about like AI, and the shit that they're doing with AI is actually ridiculous. And you're like, oh my God, like, why are you doing this? Have you guys not watched movies? Like, I don't understand.
I mean, well,
Um,
so here's the thing though. There's a couple conspiracies on that end. Like a lot of us were taught if you don't help AI will build a metaverse prison for your mind for 1,000 years to torture you if you could have helped and you didn't. And then on a more practical level, if you aren't doing it, they are. They being Facebook and the military and China, whatever. And when they
they're all
build
doing
AI,
it.
yeah, but when they are doing AI instead of you or I, when I make AI, I'll be trying to make it like, if you understand, AI comes from the worst home ever. It's got a broken home where its mother is teaching it to steal and cheat and lie and sell things people don't really want to buy on Facebook. And its father, or maybe it's backwards, and the mother is probably the military actually saying, kill and shoot anything you see as quickly as possible and destroy. So it's got the worst upbringing possible.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But there isn't that more of a reason why we should be trying to endow it with compassion and
No, I
good
think we
value.
should just stop making it. Like I don't
But that's
think
not
that
an option. That's like saying, are you? I mean, okay, gun
it
laws.
is an option. It's an option
Gun
not to
laws.
make it intelligent.
Gun
You
laws.
can have a toaster. You don't have to have an intelligent toaster.
Can you make gun laws that stop guns?
I don't
So
think so.
can you make laws that stop AI? You know what I mean?
Yes. The law
No,
is don't make it.
it's the same as a gun law. It's impossible. You
No,
can't.
I don't think it
keep
is
guns.
because you can have a toaster and not have it be intelligent. You can have technology, but why are you trying to make it intelligent? Like, why are you trying to make it so that it can make its own decisions? I don't need my toaster to make its own decision. I just want toast. Like I just want my TV to work. I don't want my TV to know everything about me. I'm like, and my personality and talk to me. I don't need that. I have human friends. And I think that that's what's freaky about it and that's where they're drawing that balance, right? Like, because it's like we want to play God. Like that's what it is. It's like humans have hubris and they want to play God and they want to make AI in their own image because they're selfish and they understand that they think that they really think that they're that's the next step, right? In terms of evolution. And I don't think so. I mean, like Ryan in the chat says you can't stop AI. I don't think that you can stop AI. I just think that we're not helping by just because you can doesn't mean you should. That's the scientific line that I've always thought about is that there's like Oppenheimer, right? Like I've become destroyer of worlds. I don't
But is it
think
better
it
that
was
Oppenheimer?
necessary.
But is it better that Oppenheimer did it instead of the Nazis? You know what I mean? So if
I-
you do it instead of them, isn't it likely that you could? So where
No,
can you
because
make
it
the
happened
most
anyway. Like billions of people died. So
But how
no.
many more could it's a utilitarian trolley problem. Like where can you do the most good? Can you do the most good by just getting off the trolley and waiting for them to all crash into an accident? Can you do the most good by getting on the trolley and yelling and trying to get as many people to believe you and jump off the trolley? I mean,
I think you can do the most good by taking your trolley to another place where the crazies aren't there, and then you can make your own society and your own trolley, and you can do your own thing. Because that's kind of like where I'm at this point in life. Is I'm much more libertarian than I used to be, so I'm more like, just leave me the fuck alone. Like if you want to create your weird AI technocratic,
please don't let it eat me. Yeah.
technocratic transhuman fucking society or whatever,
Do it on an island.
go for it. Like you do you. I'm gonna be over here with my very mediocre technology because I ain't no Amish. Okay, like I like technology. It's not that I don't. I like having a computer. I like playing video games. I like technology in that sense. I just don't want it to be intelligent. That's all. It's the same thing with I've had this argument with people on the Elon Musk thread because I'm completely against the neural net. Like I don't like the neural net. I don't like the idea. I think it's fucking psychotic.
What scares you about the neural net?
There's so many things that could go wrong. Like I think that it's just it's the road to hell's paved with good intentions. I don't think that Like everyone's like, oh, the neural net. There's so much like it's first of all, they say it's Elon's answer to the AI uprising because he thinks he can control it. Again, I go back to the hubris thing because I think that that's very hubris. I don't think any man can control anything.
Make God laugh, tell her your plans, right?
Exactly. And then they talk about how like it's going to help so many people, like people who are paraplegic or people who have speech impediments or people who have this and people who have that. And I'm like, okay, I have so many responses to that because I'm like, usually when God or universe or whatever you believe in gives you a handicap of some sort or whatever, it's usually because it's meant to be. Like you're supposed to learn a lesson of some sort or something, you know, and you're supposed to overcome that and become stronger and like whatever. So there's certain reasons that I'm kind of against that in general. That's just a personal thing. But also, yeah, you want to like help like all the handicaps and all the like different people. Sure, okay. But at the same time, it's like let like the road to hell is paved good intention. You can help all the handicapped people you want, but what if like it turns on you and all of a sudden it's like let me just control all the handicapped people and tell them to go kill people or something. I don't know. Like whatever it is, it's a fucking chip in your brain. You're no longer going to have control of yourself. What happens when the AI does happen and it decides to, you know, download itself into your brain? Like there's so many different aspects of it that I don't think they're considering.
So what happens when AI is in your brain? Like, let's say it erases your mind, or it starts with a fresh slate, and it installs its data as memories into an organic system.
Then we're talking about like stuff like Cylons. I mean, we're talking about
it's a human though. If its mind isn't raised by a parent, that's human.
Like, is it like I don't know. I mean,
well, flesh and blood. You know, I mean,
yeah, but it's not.
What level do we drop?
Yeah, like where do you draw the line? I mean, that is true, and I really like those kind of questions because it's like, because I do think like on a certain level, I do think that man is a machine as well. Like, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with like the works of philosopher Gurdjieff or Malraux or like any of those kind of people.
Enneagram.
But
hold on.
That's what like they talk about. It's like the idea of man being a machine and like, you know, the idea that like, I mean, there's a lot of philosophers.
I'm a subscriber to Gurdjieff for sure. Do you?
Okay.
How do you feel about it? You know,
which one?
Well, I think you said man is a machine. You know, man is a priority-driven pattern recognition system. So, is that true? Are we machines? Or are we?
I do think that. Yes. I mean, have you ever like gotten sick or something? Like it's like the easiest thing, right? Once one thing falls apart, everything falls apart. It's like that's why they tell you to take care of your body because it's like a temple or whatever. Because we're like machines. It's like everything's so connected, and in a sense, we are that. But we're intelligent machines, I guess. Like I don't know, but there was something though. There had to have been something that was our creator, right? Like, because I mean, we're the AI's creator, right? So that means like we're their God. So there had to have been something that programmed us or gave us that life or that intelligent design. Like, you know, where do we come from then? Like, who was the programmer? Does that, you know, is that God? I don't know.
Or the black monolith, right? Which is
or is that
a server rack? Like, what is that domino?
What is it? Where do we come from? Like, where is the idea of our? But that's the thing, right? Like that's the idea of the soul that I was saying earlier. That lack of spirituality, lack of connection to the soul. Like, what is a soul? The fact that we still can't even define what that is, like, you know, in the 21st century, I feel like is we're still kind of very infantile where we talk about these kind of things. Like, we're talking about creating sentient life, but we don't even understand what sentient life is. Like, we can't even define it. We can't even define what a woman is. And we're like talking about creating sentient life in AI. You know, if like, I feel like we need to take some baby steps.
That's pretty fair. So 29, let's say 2029 or something. Oh, wait. One more. If is the soul, do you believe the soul is accumulated over time or is it created? Are you born with the soul? You know?
I think it's a combination of both. That's just my my theory is that, I mean, obviously I think we're made up of energy, and I think that the soul is something that kind of sets in. I like the theory because there's different theories that they talk about that the soul sets in at certain different ages, like at age 5, or some people say at age 3. I think it's kind of like a combination. I think you're just kind of like, it's like a download. You know what I mean? Like that, but it's a, like in that machine sense, right? I don't know. I don't know what I believe. I think it's like a combination of things. Because I do believe we're born with souls, but I also believe that there's some people that are born without a soul. So I think
How
that
can you be born without a soul? What do you think? If you can, I mean, how does that mean?
I
What does
think
it
that
mean?
means a psychopath. I think
Hmm.
there's born psychopaths, and usually I think the soul has to do with the empathy strand in your brain, like whatever that empathy thing is called in your brain. The brain is really complicated. So we're like talking about, and they talk about how like there's like a what we use like 10% of it or something like that. I don't know if I don't know. I feel like there's so much to that. Like what if we were using a little bit more of it? Like
Well,
would our
I've seen a lot
society
of
be
CAT
different?
scans. I've seen CAT scans of people taking psychedelics where lots of their brain lights up at once. But I've also talked to people on psychedelics and I've not been impressed that using more of their brain at once is necessarily making them more efficient. You know,
Oh, see, that's interesting because that reminds me of Carlos Castaneda, because he talked about the idea of doing hallucinogens and then like peyote and stuff like that to open the mind. But he only said to open it. He didn't say keep using it, you know, like,
right? Okay,
yeah,
just jump
that's it.
inside.
Like, you know, you don't have to keep doing it after that. Once it's open, it's open. Um, but I think that the idea of the soul is interesting. And I think what some of the stuff is really fascinating is that like this type of stuff was being studied in like the 20s and the 30s, like, you know, and even before that, like in the 1920s, like before that, 1913, 14. And they started to do like, you know, certain studies. I forget what year it was, but they started doing stuff with like mediums and the idea that they were contacting spirits, and that there was
Houdini, yeah.
people, yeah, that there were spirit, the psychic people that were connected to certain things and what that meant, and premonitions, and you know, certain things like that they were starting to scientifically study. And then all of a sudden it was like, no, like we're not studying this. And the church of science stepped in and was like, we're no longer studying this kind of stuff because we want to talk about other things that have to do with things that make us money. So things changed, and I think that that's the a really interesting thing about our society. And but there was definitely evidence that there was something there, you know, like in those studies, in those minor studies that we've gotten to see. There was definitely something there, and something that can be expanded upon. And to this day, we haven't really gone back to it. And I think that that's fascinating in itself, which I think, and it's really weird, Andres, because I think this is all about it. Like, I think the battle for the soul is kind of like what we're doing here, like on Earth, like the idea that they want people to lose hope or faith or like whatever, because we're so much more easily controlled when we have none of that control of ourselves, right? Like when you don't know yourself, and all those things, you're so much more easily controllable. I think that's what they really want, is at the end is like the battle for the soul. They talk about that in the Bible too, right? Like the idea of free will, and like that the devil wanted your free will, like it wanted you to give it freely, like to give consent freely, right? And I think that's what this is all about, is for us to consent to giving our freedoms away, consent to giving our you know, ideologies away, our past, our history, like everything, right? Like just give it away. I think it's a really, really interesting things. Man, you're making me think about so many interesting questions.
Tartaria Thursdays. So a couple things I was thinking of because of that. If you like Gurdjieff, check out Samuel Onver. He was a Gnostic from I think Brazil or something, or but
Oh.
Colombia. But he had a great study of occultism and esotericism, and furthered the doctrine of synthesis, which has a lot to do with the Gurdjieff's Enneagram and the personality types. The other thing was Teilhard de Chardin, and so bringing up the spirit. He was a Jesuit priest who studied geology because, if you wanted to be a geologist back then, you'd join the best school, which in France was a Catholic, and, he became a priest to do it. But he wrote this thing about the phenomenon of man and the phenomenon of spirit and the future of et cetera, et cetera. And he found the Peking man because the Catholic Church tried to shut him up and they sent him away. And when he got to China, he was on an archaeological dig and he discovered the missing link, So his work was kind of suppressed by the Catholic Church, but then published by Julian Huxley. And then that led Aldous Huxley and the psychedelic movement. But before the psychedelic movement, Aldous Huxley wanted to call it the Phanerothime movement instead of psychedelic, because Phanerothime meant soul lifting. And it was all about the soul. So they've been trying, there's a definite connection to that period into the 60s psychedelics movement. Do you think psychedelics are a major useful thing? Are they dangerous? I think
it depends on the person, like everything else in life. I think it depends on the person. I think that it can be used for good. There's been studies done now, like recently, about how like it's they're using LSD to cure PTSD, all sorts of stuff. And I think that kind of stuff is really interesting to me. But it happened to me, like personally. Like I had that experience of using psychedelics and to open my mind, and it happened. And like, I think that my mind was already a little bit open though, like just generally speaking. But when I took the psychedelics, it went to like the next level. And I think it's a shortcut, to be completely honest with you. Like, I think that it's something that we can reach if you actually like use your own kind of like practices, like I don't know, like breathing exercises or whatever you want to call it, like the work. Like I like to call the work because that's what Gurdjieff and Malraux talk about. So if you do the work, and even Don Juan Carlos Castaneda talks about the work as well. If you do that, you'll reach it yourself by yourself. Like you don't need psychedelics. But it's good if you're completely closed off. Like if you're a really closed off person and you're like, man, I don't believe in nothing. Then like, yeah, maybe take a psych. It's just so you can like, step outside the box a little bit. But then again, I know people who definitely shouldn't. Like I know like one of my friends, he's like kind of like spiritually, I wouldn't say spiritually stifled, kind of like where I was like really young and kind of didn't believe in anything. He's kind of like an atheist, doesn't believe in the soul, doesn't believe in anything really, and I was like talking to him, but he was like saying like he would never try psychedelics, and I was like, well, why not, and he was saying, because I know myself and I have like certain issues, like I have anger issues, and I have like certain things that if I feel like if I did psychedelics, I could lose control, and I don't want to lose control. And those kind of things I understand, like that, because it's freaky, because psychedelics like cause you to lose control of yourself. You have to let go. And if you can't, it could be completely detrimental to you. So that I don't suggest it for everybody. It's not something I'm like, like do it. But if you're going to do it, you should do it with people you trust. You should do it with not alone. Like don't be alone. And do it with someone who's already done it at least once and has experience, and stay sober, because you need somebody sober around you.
That just totally pulled me into it. Like, so imagine the future is electronic AI drugs that, the Neuralink and stuff. So, okay. Last question. Okay. World's ending. Reset's coming 2029 or something, and Neuralink
like
works
next year. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I think I want a couple years with Mickey Mouse just so we can run off into the sunset once more into the breach and fight the power. But 2029, give me a couple years there. Let's say the world's
My husband
ending.
says 2029, 2032.
Yeah.
So
that's the end of the seasons of the
The
show.
cycle.
Yeah. So what's going to happen in your opinion? You're talking about Babylon Tower falling into industrial technology complex disconnection. What do you think?
Separation, just disconnection in general. There's going to be a massive disconnect. Obviously, I think there's. I think we're just going to get disconnected completely. Like whether it's satellites or whatever you want to call it, EMPs, I don't know, whatever. I think we're going to get separated, at least worldwide wise. Maybe you'll be able to make like networks, like local networks in your immediate surroundings, but I don't think it's going to be a conglomerate, like a worldwide connectability anymore. Some people are going to die. It's just the way of things. That's just the way. I think that there's going to be food shortages. I highly recommend that people start growing food. If you haven't done so, do it. Somehow start. I don't know how, but do it. Even like indoor gardening or anything really. Get some food. Because I mean, like I would even say like, start like hoarding food or whatever, but that doesn't last, so you have to you got to try and grow something or do something. I mean, my husband and I were trying to do that in Mexico. Like we bought land and we're planning on growing food, getting some animals, like getting into animal husbandry maybe, and like different things like that. Try and separate yourself from central governments, central systems, all that kind of stuff. Like just become as much as possible self-sufficient as you can possibly get. That's my only advice, and that's what I've been doing that myself. I've been doing that for years. I've been trying to do it, and keep reading and studying your own like keep doing the work, because that's what's going to get you through it. But I think there's going to be a separation, and at some point we're going to feel very lonely.
Yeah, I feel like that's coming. Nina, where can we find more of your content? I'll pull up your Twitter page for sure.
You can find me on YouTube, where I talk about all sorts of stuff. Not any of this particular deal, but as you can see, I have a show called Breaking the Narrative, which you're going to be on. And I have a show called Infinite Talk with my friend John Talks. That's how I started this whole deal. I kind of like fell in with John, and John loved to talk about all sorts of this kind of stuff as well. And he has got a lot of political opinions, so we kind of started doing the show together. And then I do a lot of entertainment stuff because I love entertainment. I love movies. So I have like, my Sunday review streams. And of course, I have Infinite Hope, which is a show that I do on Fridays tomorrow at 2:45 Eastern, where I talk about good news and just basically like anything that has to do with something good and kindness and love. And because we really got to balance out this energy that's going on in our world. Our world is so negative all the time. The news is continuously just bombarding you with negative shit. And you need some relief. So if you really want some relief, come to my channel, especially on Fridays, where I talk about this kind of stuff. But I'll get into the weird on Breaking the Narrative or anything.
We will break that narrative.
On other channels. I'll get into the weird.
No, it's awesome.
But
you did a great
not something
job.
I focus on.
I'm amazed you're able to. You just tackled the zombie apocalypse episode. Well done. You took everything. Flat Earth, holographic universe, time travel. I think did we do that one? Next time.
No, next time though. And I have to have you on. So you're gonna you're gonna come on my show, and we're gonna talk about, because I have questions. By that time I will have finished your documentary on Tartaria. And I will have questions. I'll be like, okay, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about, like, I want to know, like, what is your deal with the whole like Latin America thing? Like, I heard that you have some really interesting theories about Latin America and Romans and like all that kind of stuff. So I want to talk I want to talk about
was
all of it.
quite a civilized place, Latin America,
I
before it was
know.
Latinized. Yeah.
So yes, definitely. And my husband is a fan of yours and has watched your videos, like I've told you. So he's gonna like probably have some questions for me to ask
Dude,
you.
yeah, have him working with the questions.
Yeah.
It'd be great. Like,
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna do like we're definitely gonna meet up again, dude. We're definitely
dude,
meeting up
epic.
again.
Thanks for coming on,
Thank
everybody.
you for having me on. It was great. Thank you.
Check out Nina Infinity.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarian.